All right, what a treat for today. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the Badass Reset Club, where we try to hit that reset as much as possible. And today I have someone who is going to be very helpful because she is a queen of all things menopause information. Today we have Amanda Thebe on our show, and she's a force of nature for women who are experiencing menopause and want to feel healthy and fit in their 40s and well beyond. With over 20 years experience in the fitness industry, I told you she's a queen, she's highly regarded as an expert on women's fitness and health. She's a popular guest on podcasts, online summits, and she brings her refreshing humor and a no-nonsense approach to subjects usually shrouded in shame. And if you haven't checked her out on Instagram yet, you're going to need to go follow her for your daily dose of laughing and education. Amanda continually giving inspirational and entertaining talks. She continually inspires the loyal readers of her website, fitandchips.com. She's also got a podcast with the same name. So after you're done listening to this one, head on over and check her out. Her exercise workouts and fitness tips have been featured on websites such as Shape, Prevention, Healthline, Global News Canada, Life Hacker, Breaking Muscle, and Girls Gone Strong. And she's a master trainer for Ultimate Sandbag. Her adoring fans and clients have called her a resilient bitch. And she's with her inspiration. All righty. Welcome to the show, Amanda Thebe. I'm so glad that you were able to join us today. And I think that my listeners are going to fall in love with you because you are an awful lot like me with, we bring a little humor to the situation, and we really want women to feel better and badass again. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Heather. I actually think that, well, humor is part of my nature anyway, but I often feel that when you deliver even complicated and sensitive topics with a little bit of humor, it can sort of take the tension out of it. And I never use humor to diminish anything, but I definitely use it because usually when you deliver information or knowledge with a tiny bit of humor, people remember it. There's sort of like research on like how we different ways that we learn. And so even though like my story was exhausting and hard, and I definitely try and look for those glimmers of having a little chuckle every now and again. And then I think women feel seen then, don't they? We feel real when other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I came across you. I found you on Instagram, and then I realized that you were connected with a good friend of mine who's also been on the show, Elizabeth Andrews. But I heard about you and your book, and I went and got it right quick. You have a book called Menopocalypse, which first of all is maybe the best name ever for a book. But second of all, it is chock full of good information. And not only for women in menopause, but for women in perimenopause, because it's not ever too early to start building up your toolbox. And I love all the things you share in your book. But so that our listeners kind of get a background for where you came in, will you share a little, because your symptoms that you went through were a little bit different than the common of what we hear. You had some really kind of scary stuff that you went through, and let's talk about what led you to bring this book to light.
Yeah, it's interesting because like you said, I've been in the fitness and wellness industry for decades, actually 30 years now. I think that I started I'm 52. I started it when I was like 18, 19, like a lot of us. And we learn about human physiology and nutrition and all of the exercise science, and definitely felt like I was a really good person to turn to understand like how the human body operates, reacts, responds. And then in my 40s, I would say 42 was like the pivotal time that I started to feel different and unwell. Retrospectively looking back, my last child was born when I was 38, and things were never quite the same after I had my child. But what happened is I'd been to a boxing class. I used to do martial arts, and I just love like hitting heavy bags and that like adrenaline thing. And it just is so much fun for me. But sometimes you can work hard, maybe a little bit too hard. And you know that feeling when you've just pushed too much and then you get home and you're just wiped and you're just like, oops, it was a bit too much. Well, that sort of happened, but then I never sort of got better. I just felt like icky and unwell for a couple of days. And then it got better. And then I don't know how, maybe a few more days or a couple of weeks. I can't remember exactly. Um, but it happened again. And it happened again outside of doing this boxing class. And essentially what happened is I started to feel like my equilibrium was going. I felt like my vision was going, and I lost feeling in the right side of my face. And imagine like a claw coming across the side of your head and gripping into your eye socket and in my cheekbone and in my jaw. And then it like ran down the side of my body, and my right hand would claw and I couldn't get it straightened. And I just was like, what the hell's going on? And then that would follow by losing my balance, throwing up, not being able to walk properly. And I just was like, oh my God, what's happening? I'm a like I'm concerned now, like I'm really concerned now. So I went to my doctor. I was in Canada at the time, and he was like, yeah, let's get you checked out. I'm going to refer you to a neurologist. There's something going on there. And then that was me 2 years in the healthcare system in Canada. There was nothing that the neurologist or the ear, nose, throat doctor or the vestibular rehabilitation doctor or any of those tests that they did showed up, but I was not well.
Right.
And it was to the point where like I felt like saying, know my body, I know my body. This isn't what I'm supposed to be like. And then on top of that, I started to really struggle with depression. And it wasn't just because my situation was like depressing, waking up every morning feeling like my body was failing me, but it was more that like I just started to enjoy life. Like literally joy went. And I have got a huge personality, probably a bit like you. I love parties. I love people. I like meeting new people. I find life exciting, and it just all went. It all went. And my husband noticed, my kids noticed, my friends noticed, like everything was odd. And then this went on for years and years and years. And then essentially I went to a gynecologist 2 years later. So I was 44 and I'd been doing this for 2 years and hating waking up in the morning, like literally hating it because thinking I can't continue.
Yeah.
I just can't keep doing this. And then I went to a gynecologist about something else, like a routine checkup it was really. And then everything was fine. And as he was leaving, he just said, is everything okay? And I just started crying. And I was like, well, no, actually. And I couldn't really describe what was going on. And then he sat down, it was his lunchtime. He sat and ate his sandwich and he went, listen, this is perimenopause. This is what this is. 44. And you have you had any hot flashes? And I was like, hot flashes? What are you talking about? I was furious. I was like, I'm only 44.
I'm too young, babe.
Uh, I'm too young. And also, like, my periods were the same. Actually, my periods were only 21 days, but that happened after my baby. I'd had my baby, and I thought, this is the new me.
Right.
And actually, just before I would get my period, I always got a cold. Always the week before. And then it went when I got my period. And I was like, yeah, things have been a bit icky, but like, this is my brain, like something's not right. And he went, just struggling with migraines with aura. We know that this is an issue that women have. And the aura means you don't get the headache, but you lose your vision and your equilibrium. And vertigo was a terrible thing for me. And that migraines I would say out of 30 days a month, I would have them 20. Like it was
Oh,
brutal. They never got better. And then he said, and you're struggling with depression and I can help you. And this is normal. And then that sort of sent me down this perimenopausal rabbit hole because at first I was quite relieved. I saw my husband and was like, phew, I'm not like, I don't
not
have a brain
crazy.
tumor.
Yeah.
I'd been to ER for this. I'd driven the car and had to pull over on the side of the road because like the mountains were like closing in on me. I was in the Rockies at the time and I thought, God, I don't want to
Yeah.
crash the car with the kids in it. It was really scary.
Mm.
And then I was mad. I was really mad because I just was like, why did I not know about this? And if I don't know about this, someone who's been doing this for 20, 30 years, then Sharon next door is not going to know about it, or Julie down the street is not going to know about it. And so I did this article, Heather, and I just wrote about it saying, does anyone else like, is this the shit that nobody tells us about? Why is this the
Mm.
case? And then it sort of like just evolved from there. I started doing the research and speaking to experts and gathering a body of work. And ultimately the book happened because I just thought, I want a book that I can read because a lot of the books out there are medical and they're too heavy or they're too dismissive and it's the way they
Sure.
mock menopause. And I want I want to write a book that your best mate gives you and goes, you just need to know about this. You need to know about this because it impacts every single woman. And there's a huge knowledge gap and nobody's talking about it.
Yeah. And I thank you for sharing that. What a frightening time for you, especially someone who's health focused, because I feel like we're dialed in a little, right, to how we normally feel. And I think too that this topic is really getting some, some momentum at the
It's
moment.
got airtime now. It's having its moment, right?
It is. It's
Heather?
having
Yeah.
10 minutes. And the thing about it that I love about the book is we can be frank and we can talk about what women can experience. But it's more like, at least for, I have a daughter, who's 24, and I don't want young women to fear this time. Yes, it's going to be a struggle for some, and yes, it's going to be hard, but the book, with all the tools that we can use and the education, like, let's just make everybody aware of what's happening. The people we live with, the people who will go through it too. but
Everybody
but
gets
it should,
impacted by menopause,
it really
right?
is. It really is. There are 5 people that live in this house, and I'll tell you, you and I are the
Yeah.
same age, and we are, yep, everybody's
Even the dog. Even the dog.
even the dog. We'll make it 6. But it's I don't want it to be fear mongering. I don't want it to be like young women are like, oh, I don't want to go through that. Yes, there's going to be struggles, but that's life. And the what you give and offer with all of the the toolbox and the fitness and all of that, like, we've got to get women at a younger age focused on how they're going to transition into perimenopause, how they're going to transition into menopause and beyond, so that they can, enjoy as much as possible.
So the whole conversation, like, about our daughters and stuff, like, so I have 2 boys, and I actually think it's the same. My boys know about it. They are already ready and prepped, ready for, their future partners, daughters, nieces, whomever, right? But if we think about it, like, perimenopause can start in our late 30s. And most women are living until they're in their 80s. We spend more of our adult life going through menopause because as soon as you go through it, you're menopausal for the rest of your life. There isn't, like, post-menopause is just a name for everything after your period stopped. You're in that state for most of your life. And when I spoke to my niece about this, she was really pissed off. She basically was like, why the hell don't I know anything about this? And I never talk about menopause in a way that's going to scare people. It's just like, you need to know about this. You need to know about this so that you are aware of this and you can be prepared. You can advocate for yourself, and you can have, like, agency over your body, and you can make choice. But if you don't know what's happening, you can't make choice. If there's a knowledge gap with doctors, they can't help you if they don't know. It goes on and on and on. And
Yeah.
so she was furious, and she said to me, you better get this sorted because if your generation doesn't, ours will. And isn't that the truth?
Right, right, right. Yeah. I think your doctor was really genius too, to eat a sandwich and recognize what was happening. I
But that
think
was
a
two
lot of,
years into seeing at least 5 other doctors.
yeah, yeah. So that was a blessing right there that you got in with that doc. I hope that it's becoming a little more commonplace, but I I still hear of the dismissive, like doctors just saying, like, my clients will tell me that they're spoken to that way. Well, you're getting older, and it's it's the sweeping under the carpet. And I think that's bullshit, because we really do need to look at the fact that your body's changing, you're going through things, and yeah, like, that depression is real for some women. I have shared it before where I love, love, love to get after life. I love to, like, go for bike rides and hikes with people. And it happened a couple years ago where I was sitting outside on a beautiful day, and I had no, like, joy about it. And I couldn't figure out, on a beautiful sunny day with, someone asking me to go for an epic bike ride, why I didn't want to do it. I just felt meh. And um, that's real. when
And
those,
then what's the first place you went to? You were like, what's wrong with me?
yes,
It's
absolutely.
blame. Women then just go, oh, it's me. Like, I'm the problem. And that's, I know I did. I bet you did. Like, and that feeling of desperate despair, of, like, knowing that, like, actually, and I'm turning the tables on you. Did you feel, Heather, that you then like did this retrospective where you were like, like I was like I love my husband and my kids, even though I thought even though they drive me crazy, and I like where I am in life, and so why do I feel like this?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah. And I even remember like talking to my husband about it, and I just was so meh. And I was like, I don't understand what happened, like how I all of a sudden, this is not Heather. I didn't know what to do with it, but I knew that like vocalizing it, that's kind of where I start. I don't hold things.
yes,
I
you
talk
have
about
to.
them.
Yeah.
Um, but then I did worry about like what has shifted, what has changed. Was it the past couple of years that we've been in? I couldn't put my finger on it
Mm.
until I started reading and studying and learning more that that is my biology, and it affects everything, your mood, everything.
Yeah.
So
And I think one of the myths that like was busted for me, because I didn't know anything about this going in. Like, and I'm talking 10 years ago now,
mhm,
right? So thankfully I feel like I know a little bit more now. But one of the things I really didn't realize is how much perimenopause impacts the brain. Look, in fact, it probably impacts the brain more than anywhere else. And we know estrogen is produced in mainly in the ovaries, right? But we also know that it impacts about 200 systems in our body, especially the brain. And so when you're talking about things like brain fog, anxiety, depression, vasomotor symptoms are, you'll know this, but in case other people don't,
yeah.
hot flashes, cold sweats, night sweats, things that make you wake up in the night with insomnia, and then down to like real cognitive issues, like forgetting people's names and words, and then mood swings, like crazy mood swings that just don't make sense. All of these things start in the brain, and the other one that starts in as well as our fatigue, chronic fatigue, the way that it envelopes us to the point like sat on the sofa going, I don't even think I can make myself a cup of tea today. Like I'm beat. I'm bone tired. Like even a
Yeah.
nap or a good sleep won't get rid of. It all starts in the brain. Estrogen is an energy metabolizer. It impacts every area of our brain. And I'm part of a study with Dr. Lisa Mosconi out of New York, and they're doing MRI scans where they look at women prior to perimenopause, in our reproductive years, in perimenopause, and then in postmenopause, and in men, and they're doing a comparison, and they see that the brain actually shrinks and adapts because we no longer need to be reproductive. So the whole idea that our brain is shifting and changing shape makes a whole ton of sense to the depression and the migraines and all of the things that I went through and
Sure.
all of the things that you experienced, and all the women that are listening to this. What we do know, though, and it's really important to give that light at the end of the tunnel, Heather, when we're
Yes, it
talking
is.
about things that feel so desperate, is that the brain then has the ability to rebound, regrow, and adapt using different neural pathways. And so that women who are postmenopausal, a 3 to 5 year window afterwards, feel like things are back to normal.
Mhm.
And I can put my hand up and say that's me. Like I really, I haven't struggled with depression. I've had some depressive episodes, but I've been able to recognize them, and I'm completely on top of those now. I've told you I still have migraines. They aren't all the time now. They used to be all the time. They seem to be seasonal with me now. And so, like, there's some things that are different, but I am coping with them. I'm living a full, healthy life again. But not, but it might be because I have a knowledge base, right? I understand sort of what's happening, but the chronicness of these cognitive issues that happen in perimenopause can scare the bejesus out of women, and they're like, I'm getting Alzheimer's. This is it. And we need to say right from the bat that menopause does not cause Alzheimer's. They're doing research on this right now. Our risk factors go up when we go through menopause. Our risk that becomes that about the same as men, or slightly higher, but it doesn't mean you're going to get Alzheimer's, right? And it can be so scary for women, and that's where, bringing this full circle, the toolkit comes in, right? Because you and I live in the world of lifestyle. And to me, medicine and lifestyle have a place together, whether you're on hormone therapy or not.
Yep.
Um, you need to be doing whatever you can do so that when you're living this long life till we're in our 80s potentially,
Mhm.
it's with quality, right?
Yeah.
And it's in the most healthy way we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, going back to what we were talking about is starting this conversation as early as possible. When you can start to put on more muscle mass in your 30s, and when you can build your community and build, all of these habits for good, healthy lifestyles, it seems that there's these connections too of going through those changes just a little more smoothly. Like the research is coming out that we can transition a little more smoothly, um, not perfectly, nothing's going to be perfect, nothing's textbook because everybody's going to be a little bit different. But still going back to your toolbox, you and I kind of have the same format for the things that are important, like your movement and building muscle and the way that you fuel your body and getting your sleep, prioritizing all these pillars, is what helps.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
then making sure that you've got your support group, whether it be
Oh,
your family, your
too
friends,
right.
all of that makes it a little bit better.
One of the worst things that women experience, and I have a massive community. I think I have nearly 100,000 across platforms of women, and they reach out to me all the time, and I know they're desperate,
Mhm.
like to know what's going on, desperate for resources, desperate to know what they can do. Is and it's usually because they feel so alone. Right. And that's, I think, the power of community, right? The power of podcasts like this, where two women who have experienced something very similar can talk to one another and say, you know what, it was really, really tough, but opening up the conversation actually eases the burden somewhat. And when you have access to knowledge and information and potentially to resources for medical as well, your burden is lessened for sure. And you were just saying then about like lean mass and how important it is and all of those things. And what I would say to that is like, when you say things like that, women will go, well, it wasn't like that for me. And so when we're talking in terms like this, with anyone listening, no one and never talking in absolute terms, because like you said, everybody is individual. Like, so I had lean body mass and I had all of these things, but my brain was really impacted by it. But what's really interesting is I never had vasomotor symptoms at all, right? So this is like the hot flashes, cold
Yeah.
sweats, night sweats, and and there's some studies to show that starting in your 30s and having a decent amount of lean body mass can be helpful from in a cellular level to how we respond to our change in thermoregulatory system.
Yes.
And why that might seem like, oh, that's good for you, you didn't have hot flashes, but hot flashes have got actual health implications for them. Women who have an excessive amount of hot flashes need to be seeing a medical doctor because there's impacts for our cardiovascular health and our brain health. And so if you can do anything preventatively, even if you feel like it's not making a difference, and I think that's the point of what I'm trying to say, even if you feel like, yeah, well, it didn't make any difference to me, maybe in the moment it didn't feel like it did, but when you chip away at these pillars of health, like you said, Heather, and you keep going at them, even if you feel like you're like throwing water uphill type thing,
Yeah.
it impacts you. It impacts your overall health. It reduces the risk of disease. It helps with our future health. And so I just want women to think that even if it feels like it's for naught, it isn't. It isn't. Just keep going, keep
Yeah.
going. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That consistency is key. And I was like, perhaps you've experienced this too, since you have your fitness background. I spent all of my 40s still teaching group exercise classes. And now I'm more, I've kind of gone away from that. I still will teach yoga, but I have Hashimoto's. And so there's like a real fine line of, is this, is this my autoimmune or is this menopause? Really
Oh,
hard
it's
to
probably
know.
both. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe the mountain of both. But I'm the girl who would be in front of my class teaching all through my 40s and just deer in the headlights. Not, the thought is gone, the words are gone. Not like
Yeah.
I looked like an asshole for the better part of 10 years in front of people. And I just always chalked it up to like, I'm a ding dong. Like what am I doing? But I
I'm a ding
look back
dong.
now and I'm like, girl, give yourself some grace. That was, A double
Yeah,
win.
but you know what? Turning up and doing that, people see that, right? And I think that that's the key to this, showing that you can be vulnerable and honest. And even those of us that really prioritize or have been able to, our fitness and our health, we have the resources and the time, etc., and the knowledge. We struggle. We
For
really
sure.
struggle too. And so it's just sharing all of
Yeah.
that, and then letting people. I know that I had an Achilles injury that took well over a year to heal. And I talked about it on Instagram. And I had so many people just saying, "Oh, thank you for talking about that," because it's almost as though we see these women out there and they seem completely invincible, but you're showing us that, it's
Yeah.
not the case,
Nope.
and we can struggle.
Yeah. We'll make a pact to keep it real. We'll just keep it real. Keep it
Keeping
going.
it real,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think in the last 2 weeks teach a yoga class, you can almost put money on it that I will forget some part of my sequence. Like I can fly through it great. And then we get to the other side of the body and
Nobody cares.
oh no, but
Nobody
I
cares.
now call it out and I say, hey, that's my brain fog. That's my menopause mind. And yes, men, you should hear this. I'll totally say
Yeah.
it in my class of like, this is normal. And I just look around of like, who's actually with it today? Oh, yep. I see them doing where we're supposed to be now. Thank you,
And
so and so.
it's so funny, yeah, I know. And people have you back, that's it. And I think it's one of those things that you're almost like scared to say the M word, but then
Yeah,
once it's out, you're just like, why was I so nervous? And why was I so like scared to be vulnerable? And
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
have a friend who is an executive in a business in the UK, and she is on hormone therapy, and her hormone therapy is the transdermal patch, and
Mhm.
it's like on her thigh. And she was in the middle of a presentation, and she literally had a brain fart. Like she was like, can't even remember where I was going with this thought. And I literally can't remember what I'm talking about. And I do this job day in and day out. And there's a room full of men and a couple of women. And she just said, I'm having a menopausal moment. Hold on, I need to just hit my power patch. And she rubbed her estrogen patch and she went, got it, I've got it. And she sort of made light of the moment and people just had a chuckle and she got on with her job and nobody thought any less of her. And I just think that that's, you don't have to do that, but it's just an example of it's fine. It's fine to talk about it, right? It's in fact we should.
I think so too. And I really appreciate you for taking stigma out of it and taking, shame out of it. It is what it is. And we should be proud that we're at this stage of our lives because there are beautiful things that come along with it. Right.
That's one of the things that I think I really like the opportunity to talk about, is because when you're in the thick of it, and you've been in the thick of it too, it almost feels like there's no hope moving forward. That's how it can feel.
Mhm.
Am I always going to feel like this? Am I always going to look in the mirror and not recognize myself? Excuse me. And then there is like, it's somebody else said this, not me, but like it's not a cave, it's a tunnel, and there's a light at the end, and just keep plowing forward. And I have to say, like at the other side, that like the sort of calmness that comes over, and the security and knowledge of like who I am, and is a much stronger place than it ever was, like in my 20s and 30s. And so there's some real growth things happen through this period. And if we have an opportunity to talk about that more, I would always encourage women to do that, because you know when we see women leadership roles being filled, we see real huge improvement in like the
Right.
knowledge base and productivity and outcomes in businesses. We have like these old, in other cultures, these old women in caves and tents smoking their pipes, being sages. And I just think there's a reason for that. It's the Western culture that doesn't really appreciate, women as they go through this and they go into aging, and they should.
Mhm. Yeah. We'll keep on the bullhorn.
Yeah.
Totally. I really appreciate your work. I appreciate you coming on here and taking time today and sharing. I want everyone to go get your book, Menopocalypse. Do you have a recommendation of best place to find it?
I know, just wherever you want. I always try and
Okay.
say go to local bookshops, but it's been 3 years since it came out, so they might not be in there anymore. So Amazon's probably the place. My website's amandathebe.com, and I sort of try and link to where you can get any resources, where you can find me, anything. So yeah, just
Yeah.
head there.
I'll link all that into the show notes too. I have one more question for you before
Yeah,
you
yeah.
skip off into your day. What is the way that you hit your reset to feel badass again? What do you do?
You know, I really like that you call it the reset because I feel like I've had to do it a couple of times. And I think that's a really important thing as well, because I got COVID when it was first popular in 2020, but I had long COVID. I got long COVID for
Oh,
like 4 months and I was like, really?
oh,
So first of all, I get like perimenopause for 8 years, and then I get COVID for 4 months, and then I have an Achilles injury for a year, and I just felt like all I was doing was moaning and complaining and stuff. And the hardest work for me each time there was in the brain. It was like you need to reframe this. And so the one thing I would suggest is when you feel like you have to be a beginner again, it's okay, and
mm,
just accept that everyone's a beginner at some stage. You're probably never going back to zero. You're probably going back to like 20 or 30, but it's okay to reframe the situation to say, this is where I am right now. My Achilles was a really great example of that because I couldn't run and I even couldn't walk very much, but I was like, okay, this is when my swimming gets really good.
there you
This
go.
is when I can go on the rower or something. And so just my advice for the reset is that don't consider it to be a failure, consider it to be an opportunity and just reframe it so that you always get that win, right?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Thank
Mm.
you for your time, Amanda. Keep on slaying out there, Queen.
Thank
Okay,
you. It's so
love it.
nice we got to connect and
Yes. Thank
with
you.
the crazy Elizabeth.
Yes, yes. And even with my menopausal brain and not figuring out time zones. So thank you for your
Yeah, I know. That was funny. Thank you so much, Heather. Take
all right,
care.
love. Have a great day. Thank you for joining us, everybody. And we will see you next time on the Badass Reset Club. Thanks, Amanda.
That worked. All right. Let me know when that's out, Heather, and I'll make sure I'll share that with everyone.
I will. I will. It will be next Monday and I'll send it to you before. Like I'll send you and I love that we got this time. Thank you so much. I,
No, anytime, anytime. Nice to meet you. Take care.
thanks, love.
Bye.